Jeff is the president and CEO of CAMWorks. I've been friends with Jeff for a long time in my other SolidWorks channel duties, but been fortunate enough the last couple of years to join the CAMS team and work with Jeff. And him and Brian, our CAMWorks application engineer, today are going to be available here, and they're going to show us how CAMWorks can integrate with the SolidWorks and take advantage of that geometry you're already creating downstream to add more value to your investment. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff.
Hey guys, thanks so much. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, as Don said, you know, he and I have been friends for a lot of years, and we hate to count how many because it gives a hint to how old we are now, but we're wiser, not older, right, Don? And anyway, I'm also, and then Brian Suchland has been with me for nearly all those years, and I'm really grateful to have Brian on the presentation with us today. Those of you who know him know that he's one of the very best in the whole world at knowing the ins and outs of CAMWorks. And you'd be surprised at how quickly he's advancing with his SolidWorks skills as well. And he's been taking Paul's classes down here. We haven't made him go through the Tech Cred program, but we're grateful to have him growing all the time as well. So Brian, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It's an honor to be in the presentation today to help out.
Yep, and I know you'll add some good content. So guys, today we're going to talk about what's new in CAMWorks 2021. And there's some nice new additions to the package. I'm really excited about the direction we're going. And before I jump into this, I want to also let everyone know that there are real changes blowing in the wind, blowing, you know, in the landscape of the manufacturing community, particularly when it comes to software. We've seen great consolidations taking place, big competitors being bought out by multinational corporations. And when we see this, we've never really seen the products get better. We've only seen them get worse. And so CAMWorks and SolidWorks CAM are still totally dedicated to, you know, HCL and SolidWorks. And so we don't have any changes that we're aware of that are happening there. So we feel that the future is very bright for us. So let's jump right into it. So what we're going to be talking about today are some of the enhancements in milling. We'll be looking at multi-axis milling improvements. We're going to talk about mill turn enhancements, and there's a big one there for you. We're going to talk about continuous V-axis turning. And if you're not doing it today, maybe you'll be doing it in the future because the machines, as you guys know, are only getting more sophisticated. We'll look at improvements to the TechDB, and we're also going to talk about shop floor enhancements. And for some of you, that might even mean, what is shop floor? And it is a great new product that's meant to enhance the communication between the programmer and the shop floor. I remember back when I was a programmer, every day, the guys from the floor would come in and ask me questions about what I had done. And this is meant to cut down on some of that, you know, communication difficulty. So we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to talk about how we've changed the way that you can recognize counterbore holes. Historically, if we had a hole like this, the counterbore top, counterbore bottom, then we would recognize that, you know, as two counterbored holes, and it would try to drill it from both sides, counterbore it from both sides. Last year, we added this little checkbox that said extend holes to the stock, which is a really handy feature for those of you who want to drill that hole first and then come back in and do the counterbore second, which most of us would do, of course. And so now today, if we check this box that says recognize, or if we uncheck the box that says recognize counterbore holes, we'll get three features. Depending on the size, your max diameter of your hole right here, you could get a hole, and a hole. Or if you make this smaller, you could get a hole, a circular pocket, and another circular pocket. And so it opens up a lot of new opportunities for you in terms of you know, how we recognize those features and then how they're handled in the TechDB. And again, like Don said, please write down your questions. We can add those as we go. We'll answer them at the end. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the standard stock size. We all know that when you call up your stock vendor, they're going to give you that stock in a standard size. And so now CAMWorks can allow you to choose those standard stock sizes as you're defining the stock. And then we can reference, the assembly coordinate system, part origin, fixture coordinate systems, or a SolidWorks location as well. And we've got a little video here. And so we're going to jump into this and take a look at how that is going to work.
In previous versions of CAMWorks, the ability to define the stock by a bounding box has been limited to assigning an offset in X, Y, and Z to the sides of the smallest box that the part can fit into. In CAMWorks 2021, we now have the ability to use a predefined stock size.
Hey Jeff, that video is not playing. We don't see the video motion. It's like it paused. There, I think we go.
There's going.
Bounding box option on my stock type list. By selecting it, I can select which coordinate system to use for the orientation of the predefined bounding box. Here, I can select my stock size either from a predefined list that is saved in the technology database, or I can enter the size of my stock in X, Y, and Z. I can also save this stock back to my technology database for future use. Down here, I can locate my stock around the model by offsetting it in either direction about X, Y, and Z. I can also offset to the right or left or the center.
All right, so beyond the standard stock sizes, we're also supporting cylindrical stock and milling. And as you can see, we've always had these choices, the bounding box, and now we've got the standard stock size, we had the extrude sketch, STL, and reference solid model. But beyond that, we've got a cylindrical stock type that we can select, and we can specify the diameter and the thickness, and then we can use, our offset parameters to locate the stock. So I know a lot of us cut round stock as well, and that's been something that we've been waiting for a while.
Yep, you no longer have to draw the sketch of a circle.
Yeah.
Save you some time to drawing.
Exactly. Thank you, Brian. When we change our stock, we now will get a prompt for a rebuild. And so, Brian, you could talk about this a little bit, how it's telling us what's going to change, and then also, the prompt to rebuild based on that.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite enhancements too. I worked with the development team on this. This comes from one of our customer base, actually, Jeff. But yeah, what happens is a lot of times people will program a part and they'll come up and be like, oh, I couldn't get that size stock in. I had to change, now I have to change my stock shape. So they'd have the part already programmed, and then they would change the stock, and sometimes they would forget to go back and adjust some of the features according to the new stock definition. And if they miss one feature or something, you could have, a crash or something. So the concept is here will automatically do a rebuild, so all the CAM features update to that new stock shape. And it's, critical when you have your CAM features set to, up to stock, or, in condition to the bottom of stock, and your part perimeter features and stuff like that that go out to stock shape. So it rebuilds those features and then regenerates the toolpath automatically for you.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
And so next up, we're going to look at some drilling changes. So now what we've done is allowed the PEC amount to be based on the percentage of the flute length. And so we'll watch a quick video on how that works as well.
In previous versions of CAMWorks, drilling cycles using PEC drilling were limited to setting a set distance for the PEC depth. In CAMWorks 2021, the PEC depth can be defined by a percentage of the tool diameter and percentage of the flute length. I'll edit this drilling operation and click on the Drill Hole Parameters tab. Here we can define the sub-peck amount to be based off the input value, a percentage of the tool diameter, or a percentage of the flute length of the tool.
So again, that's very important if we are, drilling with extended length tools or stub length tools as well. So again, a nice thoughtful change that should go easier on your drills. Something last year.
Yeah, it'll help automation process too, Jeff, in the TechDB, because that's a lot of companies come up with it to help simplify the TechDB entries for automation. That way you get different default of peck, obviously between your different sizes of drills. And that was another one that comes from multiple customers. One of those customers, Hunter, happens to be online, so that one was derived from some of his enhancements. So.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that. So in other words, a company might have a stub length drill, a jobber length drill and an extended flute length drill in their database. And then how would they handle each of those scenarios, Brian?
Yeah, they would just, if they're using a stub length drill, obviously the flute length is different. They could set the peck mount by that flute length so that it's not, taking a too big of a peck to bury that flute length in, which is awesome. And then obviously, if we have multiple entries, you could define ranges in your TechDB for drill parameters from any size between like 0 and 1 inch. And as you all know, there's a lot of drill sizes between that. And you just do percentage of diameter, and that'll help you control your peck value. So it's not one static peck amount for your 25,000 diameter drill, the same one it uses for a 5/8 diameter drill. So it'll help adjust that right off the fly.
Yep.
That's one of enhancements. So it's really been real popular request from a lot of our customer bases.
Great. Thank you, Brian. So we all know that probing was introduced last year, and we've been steadily rolling out probing to some of our customers. It does require a post-processor change. And so this year they've expanded the capabilities of the probing, and they're going further with it as well. One of the things last year that was a problem is that we could probe a boss, but we needed to be able to include the specific angles. If we look down at this example in the lower right-hand corner, we've got some little wings or whatever that are kind of in the way, and so we need to change the angles at which we probe. And there could be situations where you could only probe half the arc or even a quarter of the arc. But as long as we can hit it in 3 locations, then we'll know that it is indeed what we were looking for it to be. So this was a nice change and something that was needed. They've added in 3-axis mill now the capability of doing waterfall ends. And so historically, we would take the tool path out to the end, and we could go past it by an amount, but we didn't have a way to specify that, especially in things like pattern project and constant offset, that the tool would drop down to this tangency point over the end. And so this is now available with the waterfall ends option and 3-axis milling. And you can see that it's going to be in your style of your cut with this waterfall ends checkbox in that parameters page. They've also added the ability to recognize pockets and slots that have non-uniform top and bottom fillets or chamfers. And so this improves AFR, gives you the ability to recognize features that were previously not recognized. And we can see a couple examples of that here. Here we've got a slot with a fillet that is a variable radius fillet. And you can see it starts out smaller here, gets bigger as it goes to the back. And we could then go ahead and clear that material out. We'd still want to probably use something like a Z-level finish in order to cut that. But as you guys know, that's available even in our 2.5-axis premium package. And then down here, we've got a similar situation where we've got some backdraft and we've got some taper and things like that. And the system goes ahead and recognizes that pocket as well. Brian, any thoughts on this?
I think this is great for helping identify some features that would typically be done as multi-surface features for 3-axis milling, so it can help build some simple 2.5-axis features out of it to, for roughing. You can use the 2.5-axis roughing algorithms for the volume mill, because a lot of people have that 2.5 volume mill in their bundle, and may not have the 3-axis. So
thank you, Brian.
I think it's awesome to start roughing some of those out.
Wonderful. Thank you. And this is another one that would be right up Brian's alley here. He is our resident multi-axis expert, but they've added the ability to do a 5-axis spiral swarf mill. And so as you all know, with a swarf milling, we're going to put the side of the tool right on the side of the part, and then you could do a continuous spiral, and it's morphing along the shape, and then we have the choice of along the tool axes or doing that differently. And here we see it down here again as well, where it's just constantly spiraling up there in a swarf type pattern. So again, the side of our tool is going to be on, and if we're using a tapered tool, it'll be canted away at that taper. Any other things you want to add to this, Brian?
I think that's awesome, because it's going to helical down around that part and continuously drop as it's going down, so you don't have any witness marks where the tool may lead on or off, or feed straight down along the surface. So it'll help get a nice, cleaner surface finish.
Yep, and saves time too, right?
Oh yes, most definitely.
All right, so and this is a big one for me. Like Brian is great at the lead-in, lead-outs. I struggle with the lead-in, lead-outs in multi-axis. And so they've added an automatic arc lead-in and arc lead-out, where the system will automatically calculate and minimize the tilting angle. And you do have some choices here too, as strategy to tilt or rotate, and you can mix and match those guys as well. And you can see equal tilting and rotating, prefer tilting or prefer rotating. So another, I think, powerful move at giving you more control and easier control over the multi-axis toolpath. Anything you want to add to that, Brian?
I think that's great. It'll just make the auto lead in, lead outs a lot easier, more simple for users.
Yeah, for me as well. So if we're gonna shift gears for a quick second here. A lot of our emphasis in this build is on mill turn and multi-axis, multitask machines. And so with mill turn, they've added a continuous B-axis turning, and this is something that a lot of people like, for the ability to use the same tool to do a lot of different work, like facing and turning and things like that, and to get into some different areas. And so this will be part of our CAMWorks Turning Professional license. And for those of you that have machines like Integrex machines and such, then this will allow you to go ahead and put one turn tool in, and as we said, do a lot of work with it. And it'll be good for these two orientations. There will be an option for the continuous B-axis turning to retain arc moves, and that'll be by using your spline deviation amount. And so it will go through and it will globally fit the arcs, with as it goes through and does the B-axis turning. This is something that we've been working on for a while, the automatic spindle direction for turning. Some of you guys know that, you've got tool, you all know that you've got tools, with the insert on the bottom, with the insert on the top, and you got to watch sometimes pretty closely that you're picking your proper spindle direction. I had a situation here, as you guys know, we do a little bit of machining here as well, and I snapped about a $300 cutoff tool because I failed to switch the direction of the spindle. But one of the problems with automatically detecting a spindle direction is that some machines, would choose clockwise by looking at the chuck, and some machines would choose a positive direction or clockwise by looking out the spindle of the chuck. And so we can now, in the TechDB, set what is our default clockwise rotation, and then the system will go ahead and help to make sure that we have selected the proper direction of rotation for each tool. And Brian, what would you add to this?
So yeah, I think this is be a great feature. It'll incorporate where that's going well. The big thing is this is going to have to for it to work very well and accurately, is to teach the TechDB their spindle direction for their lathe. So, and that can also be, you know, as a definition of the machine, you can define it there and save it back to the TechDB.
Yep. And I know that you were, intimately involved with this and, helped make sure they got it right. So thank you for that.
Yes, I worked with a couple of developers on this one as well. So.
Yep. And then they've added probing for mill turn machines. Not a lot to say about this other than the fact that if you've got a probe on your mill turn, now it's there and now it's supported. A big thing is going to be mill turn and turning in the assembly mode. So historically, we've always done turning in the part mode, and you were limited to one part and one stock. And now for the introduction to this, we can have 2 parts and multiple stocks, and that'll change and grow in the future. But really key for simplifying some of the programming on the more complex mill turn machines. So here we've got an example of 2 chucks and 2 different parts. We could set a coordinate system for each part, and you could literally program, on each part and then put that all together in one program. And that'll be assisted too by the new improvements to the sync manager. And so we've had the sync manager around for a while, and this is the ability to synchronize either multiple turrets or multiple spindles or both. And they've included the ability now to override the operations list in the sync manager, and you can drag and drop these guys around, put them where you want. And then one of the really nice things is that the step through will show you a very realistic view of how your machine is going to behave. And so you can both step through your program and you can post your program right from the sync manager. And Brian, anything you want to add to machining or turning in the assembly mode, mill turn in the assembly mode, and the new sync manager?
I say no. I think this is covered pretty well, but yeah. And so the big thing here too is since you can change in the sync manager here, so it doesn't correspond to the the operation tree for how you sync it. When you post process from this window, it post process in sequence of the sync manager.
Great, thank you very much. And this is a big one. This should affect just about everybody. The TechDB now has the ability to import and export tool data. So you can use a comma separated value, CSV file, and you can import and export those tools. And this is going to lead into another change that we'll talk about in just a moment. But I think we've got a video on this.
CAMWorks 2021, we can now export and import tool data from the technology database into Excel. This can be especially useful for mass editing and importing of tool data. In the technology database, I'll go to mill tooling and select flat end mill. Let's say I would like all end mills under 1/8 of an inch to have a taper shank, but I don't want to take the time to edit each tool individually. Here I can expand this menu and choose to export the data in this table.
Hey Jeff, can you turn the volume up on that any?
I'll give it a try, Brian. Thank you.
I can now go and open this file in Microsoft Excel and make the appropriate edits. Once finished, I'll save the file and come back to the technology database. I'll come back to this menu and select Import CSV File. When I open the modified file, I'll come to this window that allows me to choose how to update the tooling data from the import. I can update existing tools so that the tools in the table are updated. I can append tool list, which will keep the existing data and add rows to the table, or I can delete all to delete the existing tools, replacing the data with the CSV file I am importing. For this, I'll click Update Existing Tools, and then select the tools from the list I would like to import. it finishes up, you can see that the shank type for the selected tools has changed.
All right, so I don't know if that helped. I did try to adjust the volume a little bit as we were going through there. The next thing we'll talk about is that, and this is huge. A lot of you guys use Harvey tooling, especially for your small tools. Helical tooling is the parent company for Harvey, as you guys know. And this is just the start, but we've added the ability to import Harvey tools and Helical end mills. And so when we do this, you know, we can, again, it's just after this import CSV file, and you can have an option to append or delete existing tooling. So that's going to be huge, and that is just the tip of the iceberg there. This is something that that Brian, did you want to add anything to the tooling and the Harvey tools and all that kind of stuff?
I think this is, you know, a lot of customers ask for this for years, so I think this is an awesome enhancement and things are going. They partnered with Harvey Tools and Helical Solutions to start downloading their tools right out of their database and import them right into our database. So I think that's going to make sure we get some good, accurate tool descriptions in the software right from the manufacturer.
Yep, I agree. It's particularly handy with those tapered shank cutters and things like that. So
yeah, it'll save a lot of time instead of hand typing things in.
Yep.
So, and looking them up in the book and get them all at once. So.
Yep, agreed. Thank you. All right, and this is one that Brian has been asking for a while, and I think we all know it, that especially when you take an operation plan, you save it back to your database, there would be times when you'd have operations out of sequence in your database. And so they've added the ability to resequence operations in the technology database. And you can see here, we can take an operation, we can move it up or we can move it down. And so once again, and this is as opposed to what, Brian? We used to have to delete and recreate and all kinds of that stuff.
Correct. So yeah, this is for the new SQL Lite, format here, the TechDB. This is a huge enhancement, so you don't have to delete and redo. You can just add them and move them around to the sequence you wish.
Yep, agreed. And then this is something that's also huge. We can now modify the post-processor path in the TechDB. A lot of people, myself included, will have post-processors, like I have our own CAMS post-processors in one folder. I'll have some sample fabrication post-processors in another folder. I'll have like Brian's demo posts in another folder. And so it's nice, instead of having to go out and re-specify that folder path each time, you could put that right in your TechDB. And then this is huge as well in the TechDB, the ability to assign a default end condition for perimeter part features. And as y'all know, we have got, and I think we've got a video on this, and I was looking for the play button here and it didn't come up. But this will be particularly helpful for people who are almost always milling with a vise, or say almost always milling with sheet stock, because you use two distinctly different ways of recognizing that depth. With the vise, we're just going to go down to the bottom of the part, typically, leaving the area that we're holding in the vise. And with the sheet stock, we're typically going to go all the way through. So let's take a look at the video and see how that works.
In previous versions of CAMWorks, we were able to define the end condition of a perimeter feature in the property manager. In CAMWorks 2021, we can now define the default end condition in the technology database. I'll launch the CAMWorks technology database, and from the main mill page, go to default feature options. Here I can set the default end condition for either an open pocket perimeter or for a boss perimeter feature. There are three options for the end condition definition based on the setup direction as it relates to the fixture coordinate system. Typically, for a part perimeter feature coming from the top of the part in the Z direction, these settings apply. For a part perimeter feature coming from the bottom of the part, these settings apply. And finally, other setups will apply these settings to the perimeter feature. For now, I will set the FCS negative Z-axis type to bottom of the part and offset it 2 millimeters so that the part perimeter depth will machine just below the bottom face of the part. I'll set the positive direction to the top of the part and set the offset to 10 millimeters. The other direction can also be set. I'll click Save to retain these settings. On the top of this part, when I define the part perimeter feature, because I'm going in the negative Z direction relative to the fixture coordinate system, it picks out the correct end condition. On the bottom of this part, since I'm machining in the positive direction relative to the fixture coordinate system, it also sets the correct end condition, this time cleaning up the material left from the previous setup. If I had to define a part perimeter feature on a setup that is not perpendicular to the fixture coordinate system's Z-axis, it uses the end conditions setting on the other direction options in the TechDB. In this case, I don't need to, so I will cancel.
All right, so that's a quick look at that. Should be a very useful tool and save you from going back and constantly changing those things as you recognize those perimeter features. There's also
that
a
one was
new
derived from some of our other customers too, Jeff. Some customer feedback's been awesome on this release. So
that's great, Brian. Yeah, tell me more about that. Where do you see that being useful and applicable?
Yeah, feedback is a lot of guys with the routers. They definitely want to cut through because they got a big sheet stock and multiple parts that they've nested out from Nesting Works, and they just want to cut basically around the perimeter to cut out all those shapes. And so that allows them to default that a certain way. And then the guys, if they're mill, they can default it to, go to the bottom of the part. That way they're holding onto the stock. So.
Yep, agreed. And I run into that myself as well. So thank you. Something else that's new and changed and improved is the feeds and speeds library. As you guys know, we used to have the 32-bit feeds and speeds, and we required Microsoft access to run the feeds and speeds library. That's now all been changed to 64-bit SQLite and SQL, so SQL database. So it's got a new and improved user interface. It's going to be easier to use and manage. There's additional functionality. And Brian, I know that was always a big support issue for you guys as well. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah, because there's so many different versions of access out there. You'd have different compatibilities, 32-bit, 64-bit, what year of access, runtime, full version. So to move it out of access will help eliminate a lot of problems and get it into the SQLite, stuff. So
yep, thank you.
It should be a lot faster improvements. So we're not carrying some of the old legacy data, and this also eliminates the need for people to have Microsoft access on their computer because not everybody wants to purchase that. So.
Yep. Well, we're starting to wind down here, and that's good because we're starting to run short on time. But we've got one more thing that's just huge, and not all of our customers know about it, but it's been rolling out, and those who have chosen to learn about it and use it are really loving the product, and that is the CAMWorks shop floor product. And for 2021, we've added a document management capability to include additional documents. And we've got a video about how that's going to work. And so this is a little bit longer video, but if you really think about how do I optimize communication between my programmer, who's oftentimes in an office, and the guy on the shop floor, I think you'll see that here.
In CAMWorks Shop Floor 2021, the document manager has been added. Here I have a part ready to be machined. I can save out a shop floor file by clicking on the icon in the CAMWorks Command Manager toolbar. As in previous releases of CAMWorks, I have the option to save out the G-code and setup sheets. But new in CAMWorks 2021, I can now attach additional files to the package. I will attach a file before I publish. To attach the file, I'll click on the Add button here and browse for a file. Once I have selected a file, I can determine whether to copy the file into the package or just apply a reference. I can then add a description here, and when I click OK, the file has been added. I will click Publish to publish and save out the document. When finished, I am prompted to open the file, or to open the folder where the file is saved. I will select Open, so it will open Shop Floor. In the CAMWorks Shop Floor tree, there is an additional Document Manager tab. The SolidWorks file is listed at the top, followed by the G-code files, and down below are the attached documents that I can open up and access. If I select on one of these files, I'm given a preview of the file and any of the information related to the file. Notice here that I can change the path of the file. This is because it is referencing an external SolidWorks file. And I could change the path of the file if necessary. If I had attached a file and selected copy instead of reference, this field would be grayed out. I can also attach additional files by clicking Add and browsing to the new file. Once I have added a new file, I will need to save it. I can also access the CAMWorks Shop Floor Document Manager on its own. From the Windows Start menu, I go to CAMWorks Shop Floor and then select CWSF Doc Manager. Here, I am prompted to browse for the shop floor file. Once selected, CAMWorks Shop Floor Document Manager appears, and I can add files and preview files. If I make any changes here, I can save it back to the shop floor file.
All right, so that's shop floor. For those of you who haven't seen it before, it's really a great new tool. It's an affordable tool, but it's a way to really optimize that communication, as we said before. So that is most of what's new for now. There will be continual rollouts this year in terms of features released by HCL, and those will come with the different service packs. So here's the release schedule, because I'm sure you're all curious. CAMWorks 2021 SP0 will be the second week of December, as will CAMWorks Shop Floor 2021 SP0, NestingWorks 2021, and CAMWorks Solids. And then as we proceed beyond December, we'll have additional new features. SP0 is going to have an all-new wire EDM package with greatly expanded 4-axis capabilities. We'll have an SP1 additional tilted working plane capabilities. And then coming in SP2 is a thing called prime turning. And some of you may be familiar with prime turning. It's invented by a very famous tooling company. We're not quite yet sure if we're allowed to share that or not, but a really very unique way of turning and taking off additional material very quickly. So, and while utilizing the tool geometry for chip thinning and still maintaining optimum tool geometry for getting into those 90-degree corners and such. So something to look forward to. Brian,
like volume mill for the lathe.
It is like volume mill for the lathe, yeah. And even, there is volume mill for the lathe. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of button tools in turning, but this is a way to use standard diamond tooling. Isn't that correct, Brian?
Correct.
Great. Anything you want to add?
It's going to be an exciting one coming out. This is going to be a really exciting feature for the lathe and mill turns.
Yep. Great.
The The other thing I was going to add back on the kind of the release schedule, just to throw it out there, because some of these guys I know are just eager to jump on this right now. That's the final release in December there. The pre-release is available for customers right now. If they log into the CAMWorks customer, CAMWorks website, go to customer area and scroll down. There's a section for CAMWorks beta, and they can download the pre-release right now.
Awesome.
Good.
And that pre-release will also run in SolidWorks 2001 that Paul talked about was released.
Great.
Looks like we got a couple of questions here, Jeff, just before we take and move it over to the 3D printing. If you want to go ahead and let Joe share his screen now and unshare yours, I'll go ahead and ask the questions. First question is, on the PEC amount for drilling operations by percent of tool diameter or flute length options, does it output the percent entered as the Q value in the code, or does it do the math to convert the percentage to a distance in the code?
That's a great question. It will convert do the math and convert it from whatever the tool diameter is from the percent entered, and change the Q value in the code to what that distance of the PEC amount would be. And likewise with the flute length, if you do a percentage of the flute length, it'll convert that automatically and change that Q value in your code accordingly to whatever that distance would be.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Question number 2. For the probing, does the post-processor need modified?
That's a real big one. Yes. Yes. They've done a great job developing on the software side, and that's out and growing. And so, yes, the post-processor must be modified. And that's, obviously takes time because every machine controller out there on the market can do probing different and call different routines and macros and stuff like that. So, yes, that's also got to be developed through all the different posts and all the different controllers. But yeah, the post-processor must be modified for that. So a post-processor enhancement needs to be evaluated and discussed.
Thank you, Brian. Number 3, when importing the Harvey tools and the Helical tooling info into the tech database, does it include feeds and speeds to be assigned to that given tool?
I'll take that one. It does not include the feeds and speeds yet, but it does include a link to the Harvey feeds and speeds calculator. Isn't that right, Brian?
Yeah, there's supposed to be a link there. I have not seen it myself, but that's what I've been told.
Yeah, and I think that
I need to play with.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right, we got one more question here. It says, when importing tools into the tech database, will it do other tool manufacturers?
I'll take that one as well, if you don't mind. In the beginning, it's going to be just Harvey and Helical. But now that we have the capability done, we'll be working with more and more of the manufacturers to import their tooling. It is a cooperative relationship, right? Both CAMWorks has to have the capability, and then the tooling manufacturer has to be willing to share that data as well. But I expect that will be growing into the future for some time to come.